Imagine walking into your busy restaurant, juggling orders, wiping tables, and trying to keep up with the endless demands of your job, when suddenly you spot something that could change everything. A sleek, expensive suitcase left behind by a wealthy stranger. But what would you do if that suitcase wasn't just any ordinary bag, but one filled with $100,000 in cash? This is exactly what happened to a poor teenage waitress who never expected her simple act of honesty to turn into a life-changing story. Our story begins in a bustling city cafe where a billionaire businessman, dressed in designer clothes and carrying an aura of confidence, makes a rare stop. He's rushing through his day, juggling meetings and phone calls, completely absorbed in his fast-paced world of luxury and wealth. In the chaos, he accidentally leaves behind a suitcase. Not just any suitcase, but one packed with a staggering $100,000. It's an amount most people can only dream of, and yet, it's just a small part of this man's everyday life. Meanwhile, behind the counter, the teenage waitress is trying to keep everything together. She's far from wealthy, working long shifts for little pay, dreaming of a better future but stuck in the daily grind. When she notices the forgotten suitcase, a moment of hesitation hits her. She knows it could solve many problems, yet something inside pushes her to do the right thing. The question is, what will she do? Return it, risking nothing but a glimpse into a world she's never known. Or keep it, knowing that no one might ever find out. This story isn't just about money or lost luggage. It's about choices, integrity, and the unexpected ways lives can intersect. It's about the invisible line between wealth and poverty, and what happens when those worlds collide in the most surprising way. As the billionaire soon realizes what he's lost, the search begins, and the city holds its breath. Will the suitcase be found? Who will bring it back? And how will this chance encounter change the lives of two people from completely different worlds? Stay with us, because the next part of this story will reveal the answer, and you won't want to miss what happens when honesty meets fortune in a way neither of them expected. The billionaire's world was a stark contrast to the small cafe where the teenage waitress worked. He was used to luxury cars, private jets, and deals worth millions. To him, a suitcase with $100,000 was just another business tool, a routine part of closing a deal or making a big purchase. But in the eyes of the waitress, that suitcase represented something much more: hope, opportunity, maybe even a way out of the endless cycle of struggle she was trapped in. She had been working at the cafe for nearly a year, balancing school and late shifts, often exhausted, but always polite to customers. Life wasn't easy. Bills piled up at home, and her parents worked hard but barely made ends meet. Dreams of college or a career felt distant and sometimes impossible. Every dollar mattered. So when she saw the suitcase sitting unattended in the corner, it wasn't just a forgotten item, it was a test. Would she let temptation win? Or would she hold on to her values, even when it meant walking away from something that could change everything? At the same time, the billionaire was already in full panic mode. By the time he reached his next meeting, he realized the suitcase was missing. Calls were made, security was alerted, but no one knew where it had gone. The $100,000 inside wasn't marked or tracked, so recovering it wouldn't be easy. His world of power and control suddenly felt shaky, and the pressure to find that suitcase grew with every passing minute. There was more at stake than just money. His reputation, his trust in the people around him, and even his safety could be at risk. Back at the cafe, the waitress's co-workers noticed the suitcase too. Whispers and questions filled the air. Some thought it was a prank, others wondered if it was a trap, but no one dared touch it. The waitress felt the weight of their eyes on her, and the silence around the suitcase made it feel heavier, like it was holding its own secret. Every time a customer walked in looking for the billionaire, her heart raced. She was part of a story bigger than herself now, caught between fear and courage. As the hours passed, the city seemed to close in. The billionaire's search spread beyond the cafe. Security cameras, police, even news alerts began to buzz. Meanwhile, the the waitress faced her own private battle. She could walk away, hand it over, or keep it hidden just a little longer. But what if someone else found it first? What if the wrong person took it? The stakes were higher than she ever imagined, and the consequences of her next move would ripple far beyond this small cafe. The suitcase wasn't just a suitcase anymore. It was a symbol of trust, temptation, and the unexpected connection between two very different lives. And as the sun set over the city, both the billionaire and the teenage waitress knew this was just the beginning. The real story was about to unfold, and neither of them could guess where it would lead. The tension in the cafe was thick enough to cut with a knife. Customers came and went, but there was an unspoken buzz around the forgotten suitcase that no one could ignore. The teenage waitress found herself caught in a web of emotions: curiosity, fear, hope, and a deep sense of responsibility. She wasn't just holding onto a suitcase, she was holding onto a secret that could either ruin or redeem her. Her co-workers started to notice her nervous glances toward the suitcase. Some whispered behind her back, wondering if she might be tempted to keep it. Others hinted that it was better to just hand it over to the authorities before things got messy. But no one fully understood what was going through her mind. For her, this wasn't just about the money. It was about trust. Whether she could trust herself to do what felt right, even if it meant sacrificing something precious. Meanwhile, the billionaire's world was spiraling. His assistants were frantically retracing his steps, talking to everyone who might have seen the suitcase. There was a quiet urgency in their voices, but also frustration. In his life of high stakes, losing something so valuable wasn't just a financial blow, it was a hit to his reputation. Business deals depended on trust and reliability. If word got out that he could lose a suitcase full of cash, even momentarily, competitors might see him as careless or weak. At the same time, the media started picking up whispers of the story. Social media feeds buzzed with rumors about a millionaire who lost a fortune in a cafe. Speculation ran wild. Some suggested it was a scandal, others a setup. The cafe, once just a quiet neighborhood spot, suddenly became the center of a brewing storm. The waitress felt the weight of all eyes turning her way, even if no one knew her name yet. Adding another layer to the story, the waitress's family was going through its own struggles. Her younger brother had been sick, and medical bills were piling up. She had dreams of a brighter future, but every day felt like a battle just to stay afloat. The suitcase was a temptation that could end their worries overnight, but the fear of crossing a line she couldn't come back from kept her frozen. As the day stretched on, the waitress debated her next move. Should she call the police? Wait for the billionaire to come back? What if she tried to reach him herself? Each choice seemed riskier than the last. Meanwhile, unknown to her, another figure was watching from the shadows, a person who had heard about the missing suitcase and was willing to go to great lengths to claim it. This stranger's intentions weren't clear, but the danger was very real. With every passing hour, the stakes grew higher. The suitcase wasn't just lost property anymore. It was a ticking time bomb of trust, temptation, and secrets. The waitress was caught in the middle of a story that could change lives forever, but no one knew how it would end. As night began to fall, the cafe emptied out, leaving the teenage waitress alone with the suitcase sitting quietly in the corner. The daylight had faded, but the weight of her decision felt heavier than ever. She stared at the handle, running her fingers over the smooth leather, imagining the possibilities and dangers hidden inside. Every sound around her felt sharper: the creak of a door, the distant honk of cars, the hum of the city that never truly sleeps. The suitcase had become more than just an object. It was the center of a storm she wasn't sure she was ready to face. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from her mother, reminding her to bring home dinner and asking how her day went. She wanted to reply, to tell her everything, but how could she explain this? The secret weighed on her like a stone in her chest. What if she told her family? Would they urge her to keep the money, to escape the hardships that haunted them? Or would they be afraid, worried about the consequences of being involved in something so dangerous? Meanwhile, The billionaire was closing in on the cafe, surrounded by his security team. His face was tense, eyes scanning every corner, searching for any sign of the suitcase or the person who might have it. He knew the value of time. Each minute that passed without the suitcase meant more risk, not just to the money, but to his entire reputation. If word spread that he couldn't keep track of his own valuables, rivals would pounce. The pressure was mounting, and the tension was palpable. Unbeknownst to both of them, the stranger who had been watching all day was making their move. A shadow slipping through alleyways, eyes fixed on the cafe's entrance. This person wasn't interested in honesty or kindness. For them, the suitcase was a prize, a quick ticket out of whatever troubles they faced. The waitress didn't see this danger coming, and that made her all the more vulnerable. Inside the cafe, the waitress's heart pounded as footsteps echoed closer. She thought about calling the police, but what if that made things worse? The idea of handing over the suitcase to someone she didn't fully trust scared her. Her hands trembled, and sweat beaded on her forehead. The suitcase seemed to pulse with an energy of its own, as if aware of the choices hanging in the balance. Suddenly, the door opened, and a familiar figure stepped inside. The billionaire's eyes locked onto the suitcase, then onto the waitress. The moment stretched thin, every second feeling like an eternity. Outside, the shadowy figure paused, sensing that time was running out. The story had reached its breaking point. Honesty, desperation, danger, and trust all collided in one quiet cafe. What would happen next? Who would make the first move? And who would walk away changed forever? The answers were just beyond reach, waiting in the tense silence before the storm. The billionaire's gaze locked on the suitcase, but then something unexpected happened. Instead of relief, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Where did you find this?" he asked the teenage waitress, his voice calm, but edged with something sharp, doubt. The waitress hesitated, her heart skipping a beat. She had been ready to hand it over, to end this nightmare and maybe earn some gratitude, but his tone unsettled her. It was as if he wasn't just worried about losing money, but about whether he could trust her. Before she could answer, the cafe door slammed open again, this time with force. The shadowy figure who had been lurking outside stepped in, eyes cold and calculating. "That suitcase belongs to me," the stranger said, voice low but filled with menace. Suddenly, the quiet cafe was filled with tension so thick it almost felt suffocating. The billionaire's security team moved quickly, but the waitress was frozen in place, caught between the two worlds colliding around her. The suitcase, $100,000 inside, had become more than a lost item. It was a battleground of trust, greed, and survival. The stranger's claim raised new questions. Who was this person, and how did they know about the suitcase? Was this all some setup, or had the billionaire's careless mistake uncovered something much bigger? The waitress's mind raced. She thought about how much this money could change her family's life, but also how dangerous it was to be involved in something that seemed to have so many hidden layers. She looked at the billionaire, searching for answers in his guarded expression. Was he truly the man she thought he was? Or was there something more to his story, secrets buried beneath the surface of his wealth? The stranger stepped closer, reaching toward the suitcase, and the billionaire's hand shot out, blocking the move. "You don't know what you're getting into," the billionaire warned, voice low but firm. "This isn't just cash. There are risks you can't imagine." The waitress swallowed hard, realizing this was no longer just about lost money. The suitcase was a key to a dangerous world she had only glimpsed. Outside, the city's noise seemed to fade, replaced by the tense silence inside the cafe. The waitress felt every heartbeat, every breath, as the stakes rose higher than ever. Trust was breaking down, and the line between right and wrong blurred. She knew that whatever happened next would change everything, not just for her, but for the billionaire and the mysterious stranger. The suitcase sat between them, silent but powerful. It held secrets and possibilities, and no one could predict which path it would lead them down. The story was far from over. The clock was ticking, and every choice now carried consequences heavier than ever before. The tension snapped like a wire stretched too tight. The stranger lunged toward the suitcase, but before he could reach it, the billionaire grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "Stop," he barked, his voice echoing through the quiet cafe. The waitress stepped back, heart pounding, as the two men locked eyes, one filled with desperation, the other with cold resolve. Then the billionaire did something unexpected. He opened the suitcase slowly, revealing not stacks of cash, but carefully arranged documents and folders. The $100,000 wasn't in the suitcase at all. The waitress blinked, confused. The stranger's face twisted in shock and fury. "You lied," he spat. "The money's gone." The billionaire nodded solemnly. "It's never been about the cash," he said. "That money was just bait." His eyes turned to the waitress. "This suitcase contains evidence, proof of a criminal operation I've been investigating for months. The stranger you saw, he's connected to it. I lost the suitcase for a moment, but he's been trying to get his hands on it all along." The waitress's mind raced. She'd have thought she was caught in a simple story about lost money and honesty. Instead, she was in the middle of something much bigger, something dangerous. The stranger's desperation suddenly made sense. He wasn't just after money, he was trying to protect himself. Before anyone could react, the cafe door burst open again, and several police officers rushed in, their badges flashing. The billionaire raised his hand. "I called them earlier. They've been tracking the stranger for weeks." The man who had tried to grab the suitcase was handcuffed on the spot, his plans undone. The waitress let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The billionaire turned to her, gratitude shining in his eyes. "You did the right thing by holding onto the suitcase. You helped bring down a dangerous criminal today." She felt a mix of relief and disbelief. Her simple act of honesty had sparked something she never could have imagined. But just as the tension began to ease, the billionaire reached into the suitcase one last time and pulled out a small envelope. He handed it to the waitress. "This is for you," he said quietly. Inside was a check, enough money to change her life and her family's future. She smiled, overwhelmed, but before she could thank him, the billionaire's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then froze. His face went pale. "There's more," he said, voice tight. "Someone else knows about this suitcase. And they're closer than we think." The story wasn't over. The waitress looked around, heart pounding again, realizing she had stepped into a world where trust was rare and danger lurked in every shadow. The suitcase had been found, but the true battle was just beginning. The billionaire's warning hung in the air as the police secured the cafe and led the stranger away. Despite the sudden twist, there was a calmness settling over the room, as if the worst of the danger had passed for now. The waitress, clutching the envelope the billionaire had given her, felt a strange mix of exhaustion and hope. The weight of the suitcase, both literal and metaphorical, had been lifted from her shoulders, but the lessons it carried would stay with her. The billionaire took a deep breath and explained more about the evidence inside the suitcase. It was proof that would help dismantle a criminal network, and thanks to the waitress's honesty, the operation was one step closer to justice. He admitted he had been under immense pressure, and losing the suitcase had put everything at risk. But her choice to return it, despite the temptation, had made all the difference. "You showed integrity when it mattered most," he said quietly. "That's rare." The waitress smiled, feeling a new sense of pride. Her life was far from perfect, but this moment reminded her that even small actions could have a big impact. The check inside the envelope was more than money. It was a symbol of opportunity, a chance to build a better future for her family. She thought about her parents, her little brother, and all the sacrifices they had made. Maybe now things could change. As the police finished their work, the billionaire promised to keep in touch and offered to help the waitress with scholarships and job opportunities. It wasn't just about the money, it was about opening doors. For the first time, she saw a path forward that wasn't just about surviving but thriving. The cafe returned to its quiet rhythm, But the story of the lost suitcase and the teenage waitress's honesty quickly spread through the community. People admired her courage and integrity, a reminder that honesty can shine brightest in the darkest moments. It wasn't just a story about money or crime. It was about trust, kindness, and the unexpected connections that can change lives. Looking back, the waitress knew that the suitcase had tested more than her honesty. It had tested her heart and her hope. And while danger still lingered in the world beyond the cafe's doors, she was ready to face it, armed with a new confidence and the knowledge that sometimes doing the right thing is its own kind of fortune. In the end, the billionaire's lost suitcase became a story about honesty bridging worlds, between wealth and struggle, power and kindness. It showed that even when life feels overwhelming, integrity and courage can open the door to something better. And for one teenage waitress, that was the most valuable treasure of all.